Danger, Will Robinson! Danger! No, Will Robinson!
Dear, I'm freezing. I shall never survive the night.
My body temperature is 95. If you wish to be warm, Dr. Smith, come into my arms.
Do you know of any science fiction film that once shaped an entire generation of space enthusiasts with breathtaking survival scenes in the endless universe? And that is Lost in Space, the sci-fi legend that once shook the screen nearly 30 years ago and to this day remains an irreplaceable icon. But behind this seemingly familiar film lie countless secrets that even die-hard fans have never known. There was a robot suit that weighed hundreds of kilos, was suffocatingly hot, and once caused the entire studio to catch fire. Even there was an actor who, because of one line, left Hollywood and disappeared forever from the spotlight. And those are just 2 of the 20 secrets that Lost in Space deliberately hid. All will be revealed right now. 1. From an obscure supporting role to the soul of Lost in Space. Initially, in the pilot script, Dr. Smith did not exist at all. Jonathan Harris was only invited at the last minute with a brief task play the villain for a few episodes, then withdraw. But he did not accept. Harris quietly transformed the character, turning Smith into a flamboyant, sarcastic person, both malicious and humorous, to the point that the audience could not look away. The line, "Oh, the pain," became his trademark, and the request to keep the title special guest star in every episode was an unprecedentedly bold move, and Harris succeeded.
Oh, the pain. The pain.
Oh, the pain. The pain.
From a supporting role that was not in the script at all, Dr. Smith became the centre of the entire series, completely changing the atmosphere of Lost in Space. And then, this very creativity led to one of the very weird episodes. 2. The Carrot Nightmare, the episode that enraged fans. This is considered the weirdest episode in the history of science fiction. Television, the entire crew of Lost in Space was turned one by one into plants by a giant talking carrot.
Good day to you, stranger.
Good day.
Screenwriter Peter Packer was so afraid of the cast's reaction that he had to hide the script when he gave it to Jonathan Harris. And just as he suspected on set, laughter erupted continuously, forcing many scenes to be reshot over and over again. But behind the laughter was a fatal blow. The episode was heavily criticised, faced a wave of boycotts from the audience, forcing the television station to decide to cancel Lost in Space just 1 episode later. And amidst that chaotic atmosphere, a real-life romance quietly blossomed. 3. Billy Mumie and Angela Cartwright, a teen romance that challenged Hollywood. Can you believe it? When Lost in Space started filming Billy Mumie, Will was only 12. Angela Cartwright. Penny was just 13. On screen they were siblings in the crew's family, but in real life, Mumie had an early crush on his co-star and patiently waited until he got his driver's license to officially ask her out on a date. That story, which seemed like a teenage joke, became surprisingly serious. They both got engaged while still teenagers, causing a stir throughout Hollywood. And then, they suddenly broke up. Youth and different paths had pulled them in 2 different directions. What no one expected was that instead of breaking up in bitterness or scandal, they remained close friends for decades, something almost unthinkable in the scandal-ridden world of showbiz. But not every behind-the-scenes story of Lost in Space was that beautiful. 4. Guy Williams, from the legendary Zorro to a shocking withdrawal. Guy Williams, the symbol of the screen hero with the role of the invincible Zorro in the hearts of millions of viewers, had placed his full trust in Lost in Space. When he accepted the role of John Robinson, he thought he would lead a serious, dramatic and grand adventure. But reality dealt him a slap. The series suddenly shifted to campy comedy, following the trend of the popular Batman turning the character he played from the leading center into a bland supporting role on the very ship he commanded. This change was not just a shock, but also a heavy blow to Williams's pride and reputation. Unable to bear that decline, he chose to withdraw from Hollywood in silence, giving up the spotlight and great opportunities. He returned to Argentina, where Zorro was still honored as an immortal legend, as if to hold on to the last bit of glory. From then on, Guy Williams mysteriously disappeared from the entertainment industry, never returning to the screen. This loss was just one of the deepest cuts behind the scenes of Lost in Space. 5. The Robot. B9 suit. 200 pounds, a mobile hazard.
With all my lights, I can double as a passable Christmas tree.
The Robot B9 suit was a masterpiece of design engineering created by Robert Kinoshita, who had built the legendary Robbie the Robot. Weighing nearly 90 kilograms, the suit was sealed tight and hot as a furnace, turning actor Bob May into a mobile hazard on set. May was chosen not for his acting, but simply because his body fit the suit perfectly, without any modifications, a rare and irreplaceable coincidence. The first time he wore the suit, May was scratched by the sharp metal and wires inside, enduring a suffocating feeling in the hot iron cage. All operations like turning on the lights, rotating the antennas, controlling the arms, had to be done manually, with his head making acting extremely difficult. In a surprising scene, Bob May had a habit of smoking while filming what seemed harmless, turned into an incident when the smoke seeped through the small cracks in the suit. Director Irwin Allen once turned pale, thinking the suit was on fire, rushing to put it out on the spot, giving the entire film crew a scare. But compared to what happened next, this was not yet the biggest fear. 6. The Unaired pilot. No place to hide. Before Lost in Space officially aired, the film crew had completed a mysterious pilot episode titled No Place to Hide, a completely different version that audiences had never seen. The first special point there was no Dr. Smith, nor the legendary robot. The atmosphere of this pilot was much darker, more serious, and more realistic than the later version. The Robinson family was caught in a fierce meteor shower, lost in vast space, and had to struggle to survive. No laughter, no jokes, only loneliness and lurking danger everywhere. The production cost of the pilot episode reached $600,000, a huge sum for that time, equivalent to millions of dollars today. However, the producer decided not to release this version. Instead, they chose to reuse many scenes and add new characters like Dr. Smith and the robot to shift towards a more adventurous and humorous style to attract a wider audience. The pilot version. No Place to Hide thus became a big secret in the history of Lost in Space. But the official episodes that were chosen to be filmed also did not have a happy ending. 7. The filming that was frozen because the actors couldn't stop laughing. Not every scene on the set of Lost in Space was completed smoothly. In the episodes that were too absurd, culminating in the Great Vegetable Rebellion, the actors burst out laughing in the middle of takes, ruining the entire acting rhythm. Someone was just embodying a giant carrot. Someone else was turning into a plant, but still had to keep a straight face. The result, laughter exploded, and the director was forced to yell "cut" repeatedly. The consequences were not light. 2 actors were removed from the next 2 episodes for disrupting the filming schedule. From then on, the Lost in Space set became silent. No one dared to be noisy or laugh during a scene anymore. But it wasn't just on the set that there was tension. Even after the series ended, the internal rifts were still clearly visible to the public. 8. The boycotted 1976 reunion. In 1976, the popular TV show Family Feud planned to reunite the entire cast of Lost in Space in a special episode. This should have been an opportunity for the audience to see the legendary faces again, to reminisce about the golden era together. But then the shock happened. Billy Mumie, the boy Will Robinson, refused to participate. Jonathan Harris, the soul of Dr. Smith, also turned his back. No explanation, no official announcement, just they would not be there. The reunion lost two important pieces, making the stage feel uncomfortably empty. The remaining actors still appeared, but this absence was irreplaceable. The press and fans immediately buzzed. They speculated, had Mumie and Harris had a serious argument, or was there a friendly on the surface but not in the heart situation that had been simmering for years? No one confirmed, no one denied. And then, if this boycott disappointed the audience, the way Lost in Space left the air was what truly stunned everyone. 9. An ending without a goodbye. Season 3 concluded with the Robinson family trapped on a strange planet. The story was left unfinished, and their fate was left hanging forever. No wrap party, no official farewell. Everything ended so quietly that the actors themselves did not even know they had just filmed their final moments. Then the news of the cancellation hit like lightning. Some cried right on the set, others were stunned into silence. 2 decades later, the 1998 movie repeated that fate choosing an open ending with a direct jump into the future, leaving the audience floating amidst a series of unanswered questions. And among those questions, a secret gradually emerged: was Lost in Space truly an original creation of Hollywood? 10. Originating from comics and 19th century novels. Did you know that Lost in Space is not just a normal science fiction series? It is actually the product of a spectacular time jump connecting centuries of imaginative creation. The series is based on the comic book Space Family Robinson, 1962, but behind it is the inspiration from the classic novel The Swiss Family Robinson, published way back in 1812. This means that Lost in Space is an adaptation of an adaptation, a surprising rebirth of a story that is over 200 years old. What's even more shocking, throughout its broadcast, the comic and the TV show were cross-promoted in a very systematic way, creating a vast fan ecosystem, not just limited to Lost in Space fans, but also attracting fans of other sci-fi rivals. Even among the film crew, many members were avid fans of competing series. The most typical example is Billy Mumie. 11. Billy Mumie, a true Star Trek fan. It sounds paradoxical. The child star of Lost in Space was a die-hard Star Trek fan. Billy Mumie grew up right next door to William Shatner and did not miss the opportunity to join the rival universe when invited to play a Starfleet officer in the Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode, The Siege of AR-558, 1998. He particularly liked this role simply because he didn't have to endure wearing heavy prosthetics all day. But Mumie was not just an actor. He was also a musician, famous for the musical comedy duo Barnes and Barnes and the quirky song Fish Heads, which once became a sensation in American pop culture. The fact that Billy Mumie, the face associated with Lost in Space, was a die-hard fan of Star Trek, its direct competitor at the time, was shocking enough. But the following story will surprise you even more. 12. Dick Twofold, the immortal voice that made the robot a legend. For the audience, Lost in Space is remembered not only for its visuals, but also for its sound. That sound bears the mark of Dick Twofold. He was both the narrator of the series and the one who breathed life into Robot B9 with the legendary line, "Danger, Will Robinson," one of the most classic catchphrases in American television history.
Danger, Will Robinson! Danger! No, Will Robinson! Danger!
Twofold's voice was not only expressive, but also had a tone that was both warm and authoritative, making the robot a character with a heart despite being made entirely of steel. Decades later, when Lost in Space was made into a movie in 1998, Twofold returned, maintaining that same voice almost unchanged despite the passage of time. Twofold's immortal voice made the robot the soul of Lost in Space. But for the robot to have a place to stand in the universe, the producer had to spend money on something much more terrible. 13. Jupiter 2. The $1 million ship and the expensive secret.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Ignition! Power up!
The Jupiter 2 ship was not only a symbol of Lost in Space, but also a budget-swallowing black hole. Just building the model and the set cost up to $350,000 in 1965, a huge sum at the time, equivalent to about $2.5 to $2.6 million USD today. Notably, the Jupiter 2 was even more expensive than the USS Enterprise in Star Trek, its direct rival on television. Inside the film, its value was raised to a breathtaking level $30 billion USD, making it one of the most expensive fictional ships in television history. From the control room, sleeping quarters to the engine room, everything was meticulously designed, making the audience believe that this was truly a machine that could fly through space. But not all the details in the film were newly created, because some things the Lost in Space crew had borrowed from their rival. 14. Pointy-eared alien. A prop-stealing trick. In 1967, the episode The Haunted Lighthouse of Lost in Space needed a new alien race. Instead of wasting time on design, the makeup team chose to shorten the process, borrowing the pointy-eared mold directly from the Star Trek film crew.
My name's J5. They call you Penny, don't they?
Those ears were the trademark of Spock, the symbol of their direct competitor. Yet they appeared in Lost in Space with only a few minor modifications to avoid being immediately recognized. When the audience found out, Star Trek fans were angry, thinking it was a blatant theft, while some Lost in Space fans were gloating, thinking their film crew had played a prank on the rival. In reality, this was just a behind-the-scenes agreement between makeup artists. But the story was still passed around as proof that the sci-fi war on television in the 60s didn't just happen on screen. However, that was still nothing compared to the fights right behind the scenes of Lost in Space. 15. Behind-the-scenes casting drama. Few people know that before Jonathan Harris became the classic Dr. Smith of Lost in Space, the name Carroll O'Connor, who later became famous for the role of Archie Bunker, was once considered. If that choice had been made, Dr. Smith would have had a completely different personality, less comically cunning, but more rough and edgy. Some crew members at the time even argued fiercely about who was the right face to balance the elements of comedy and tension. In the end, Carroll O'Connor did not take the role, and Jonathan Harris created the image of Smith, who was both detestable and impossible to look away from. And it wasn't just the personnel who were carefully considered, even the props were cleverly utilised by the film crew. 16. Smart prop reuse. In a context where the budget was always tight, the Lost in Space crew was forced to be creative. In a way, few would expect reusing props to the point where the audience could hardly recognise them. Models of robots, machines and science fiction equipment were repainted with a few small details added, and thus became new technology from a strange planet. Typically, the long-range scanner played up to 3 different roles, only differing in paint colour each time it appeared. Thanks to these tricks, the series still maintained a grand image on screen, while the budget was not exceeded. But saving on props was still a small matter. Another behind-the-scenes incident really made the whole crew's hearts stop. 17. The mystery of the cryotube, Dr. Smith, the stowaway causing chaos in space. According to the original script, the Jupiter 2 ship only had 6 cryotubes, just enough for the Robinson family and the pilot. everything was perfectly calculated, until Dr. Smith appeared, not in the plan he sneaked onto the ship at the last minute, becoming a stowaway passenger in space. When the episode aired, sharp-eyed viewers immediately noticed, wait, so where does Smith sleep? From then on, a series of theories began to emerge that he had to sleep sitting up for the whole flight, that he squeezed into someone else's tube, and some even joked that he hid in the food storage compartment. Whatever the truth, this remains one of the most humorous technical errors in Lost in Space and became a topic for fans to discuss for decades later. But if the story of the missing cryo tube only made the audience laugh, the next error made them frown. 18. Contradictory launch date. The adventure of the Robinson family began with a detail that seemed simple, but was one of the most notable errors of Lost in Space, the launch date of the Jupiter 2. In the pilot episode, No Place to Hide, this date was recorded as October 16, 1997. However, just a few episodes later in The Derelict, another date appeared, October 21, 1997. The strange thing is, both episodes emphasised that everything happened within just 24 hours of the launch date. This contradiction led many fans to question the accuracy of the script, and at the same time created a mysterious gap in the series' timeline. Was this just a screenwriter's oversight, or a deliberately left detail? The question remains unanswered. The launch date may be a mystery, but the Chariot all-terrain vehicle held surprises that few expected. 19. The Chariot Vehicle, the crew's inseparable object. The Chariot all-terrain vehicle was not just a mere prop. It was the very symbol of the Robinson family's spirit of exploration and survival. Designed to traverse all treacherous terrains on strange planets, the Chariot appeared in almost every episode with an irreplaceable role. This was one of the most beloved props, not only for its unique design, but also for its flexibility that helped make the exploration scenes more vivid, tense, and engaging. The Chariot has become a familiar image linked to the memories of millions of viewers who followed Lost in Space through generations. And the Robinson family's journey did not just stop at space explorations, they also unexpectedly returned to Earth in a mysterious moment in time. 20. The trip back to Earth in 1947. In the episode Visit to a Hostile Planet, the Robinson family unexpectedly travelled back in time, returning to Michigan in 1947, a shocking and rare twist in the series. This event not only opened up a rare time travel story, but also raised a series of questions about the connection between different worlds and times in the Lost in Space universe. This moment made the audience curious about the unrevealed things, creating a new mysterious depth to the already strange adventure. The end of the episode left a lasting echo, making fans constantly speculate about the true meaning of this trip to the past. Lost in Space is not just a classic science fiction series, but also contains countless shocking secrets, behind-the-scenes stories never before revealed. From the transformation of the character Dr. Smith into the soul of the show to the humorous accidents and casting drama, every detail contributes to creating a complex, colourful picture of the world inside the film. The secrets about the huge cost of the Jupiter 2 ship borrowing props from Star Trek, or the small technical errors that made fans talk endlessly, make Lost in Space more vivid and interesting than ever. If you want to discover more strange and surprising hidden corners of other legendary series, don't forget to share the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next exciting content. The journey into space is still very long, and there are many more things waiting for you to discover.